Good evening, everyone. We will get started tonight for our Monday, March 11th committee meetings. Before we do, one item to note. March the 19th, we were scheduled to meet with UT President Randy Boyd at the jail, and he has had to reschedule. So you can mark that off your calendar. March the 19th, UT President Mr. Boyd will not be here. That said, we'll get started. First item on the business, Justice Center Public Safety Committee. Chairman Horner, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll call the Justice Center Public Safety Committee to order. If there's anyone wishing to address this committee, may do so at this time. Agenda items only. Seeing none, item 3A, no old business. Item 4A, Justice Center project update. Tony Pettit, Burwell Construction.
Dangerous getting out of that pew. Good afternoon. We like sunny days rather than cloudy days. Let's go through the pictures here. This wall, am I in control now?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
See those are back.
All right. So you're looking at the Justice Center, of course, in the front, the courtrooms and stuff. There you go. And this is coming around, and you're seeing two stages here. You're seeing the stud walls are up, and then you have a green board there, and then the white stuff or the yellow stuff that you see is a vapor barrier that's also got the insulation factor in it too. And all that is going to be behind the brick. Like all that's right behind the brick veneer. Next week, they're going to start standing some precast out on the front entrance. The main entrance is right there in front of us. And that is the sally port in the back. And this sally port is the, if you go out there and look at it now, that scaffold on the north side, the north side's gone now, and it's all brick. And so I think the architect and the early on, we, believe it or not, we had a credit. And Mr. Reed's not here. I was going to try to take credit for some of that. But we got a credit for brick when we selected it. And when we selected the brick, if you go out there and look at the brick on the dolly port and then look up the brick on the precast, it's a pretty good match. So we're kind of tickled with that. I think we've been through that. So, moving right along, current contract amount through change order number 17 is, and I found out when I was going back through this report, I gave you the wrong contract value amount last month. I didn't include 16, but I've got it corrected now. So the contract amount right now through change order 17 is $94,410,183.16. Billed through February, $620,223.16, which is 79% complete, 79.04. Balance to finish is $19,789,960,000. So it's still a big project left to go, about $20 million project. And then when we've been tracking stored materials because of inflation and all that, and store materials have come down from the high that we had when we were really trying to buy materials and steel and stuff earlier on in the project. But we still got $8,354,000 in stored materials, both some on-site and some off-site. And now it's becoming more of the things that you get to see day to day, like millwork and ceiling tiles and electronics. A lot of electronics, the security electronics and everything are it's already bought and paid for, and they're in it. All these store materials that are offsite are in insured warehouse, and we're a certificate holder of the insurance. But that store material, which is $8,354,000, when you take that out of the work in place or the build to date, that leaves a project that's 70.19% complete. The good hump. They got a lot of work to do. Substantial completion is still in August. Contract date for substantial completion, if you're looking at that cover sheet, is still 7/31/24. We're still talking about the snow we got in January, but the contractor's pushing all he can to make that happen. Substantial complete means that we get to start moving in some furniture, but we'll also be certifying the jail and stuff, and we anticipate operation October, November, something like that in business. Any questions?
Mr. Pettit, what percent did you say we were completed?
We are complete, we build 79%.
Okay.
When you take the store materials out of it, which we've already paid for, or we're paying for it in February, I guess, that check will be written in the next couple of days. But then when you take the store materials out of it, actual work in place is 70%.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4B, change order number 18, County Mayor, Mr. Britton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason that I'm up here giving change order 18 instead of Tony is because this change order deals with issues and changes that the county requested, that the owner requested, and I want to go through those and why we requested those. If you'll turn in your packet to there's one page that's an email from Linda Briggs from Mosley Architects to me. The first page and a half deals with the details under, if you look at a PCO number, which is potential change order number 63, 64, 65, and it goes into the details of what's included in those PCOs. But change order, or PCO 63 is valued at $52,754. And the main parts of PCO 63 is that we're adding 2 transaction windows in the General Sessions Court lobby area where litigants and those who are involved in the Sessions Court come to do business with the court clerk. And so we in the plans, we had 2 windows, which isn't enough, and so we're proposing to add 2 more windows to that lobby area to make 4. And then another one of the larger expenses is we're resizing a closet in the community service area. It's a storage area that we're reducing maybe by 40 to 50%, and leaving that area open for our litter crew coordinator. So it'll be like a work area for our litter crew coordinator who'll come in after being on the streets with his truck and with his people and filling out paperwork. So those are the 2 biggest items in PCO 63. You also have in that one, let's see, you have, we eliminated an ice machine, installed a cabinet in its place. We added a mop sink and a mop rack in the court area, in the court area, in that floor, just to make it more accessible to our maintenance staff, and changed the receptacle there. We eliminated in this change order, we eliminated 3 visitor visitation stations. We had 24 total to start with, and video visitation is becoming more a mobile function, and fewer people are coming to the justice centers and jails, and so we reduced that from 24 to 21, and then in a change order we'll have forthcoming, we're reducing that to 12. So, and turning that space into storage, and you'll see that in the future. Let's see. All right, so that's PCO 63. Are there any questions about that part of it? All right, PCO 64, it's valued at $42,786. And that, a lot of work in that change order is electrical. We moved the floor outlets for the court reporters in the courtrooms across the courtroom, like from here to here, to follow what the judges wanted. Especially in criminal court, they want their court reporter right up next to where the witness is and where the judge, she can hand the judge paperwork. And so instead of over here, we moved it here. So that was for functionality for the courtroom. So we relocated those. We also converted a storage room. All right, and when we redesigned, we eliminated one judge's office. And the idea was that when we came back, if we had the funds available to finish out the hearing room that you guys chose to do, not the big courtroom, but a hearing room where different court activities will take place, that would serve as not only a hearing, but also an office for the circuit judge who's visiting, the visiting judge. Well, that's not working out because that court area is going to be used every day in one way or another. So what we did is we took a storage room on the back hallway, on the judge's hallway, and we're converting half of it to a judge's office area for the traveling judge, for the circuit judge who is visiting. So that is in PCO 64. Any questions about that? All right, in PCO 65, it's $8,366. Primarily what that is converting a multi-purpose room on the first level of the housing units for prisoners to an office space for the jail investigations compliance officer, PREA officer. So the corrections officer who fills that post will have an office where he can work out of, and that's on level 1 of the housing unit, and that's room 109. So we're converting that from a multi-purpose room to an office. And then the room that he was going to occupy in the jail administration area will now be used by the sheriff and the chief when they need space to work in the jail area. So that's PCO 65. And then PCO 79, which is $46,182. We added 2 service windows for the circuit court clerk in the circuit court area of her office, which is if you go in the front door, her office runs most of the right side all the way down the hallway. On the far end is the area where her circuit court clerks will be, the ones who service the judges and the cases in the various circuit courts. And so we had one window in the wall, basically, which isn't enough. And so we eliminated a storage closet and added 2 service counters, 2 more service windows. And so those will be used for cost collection. and for the judicial commissioner will also use one of those. So, so that is PCO 79, is those two transaction windows in the hallway, which includes all the transaction windows have bullet-resistant glass to protect the clerk, and also the kind of like a bank, or at the old, instead of the tubes at the banks, but the little device where you can shuttle documents underneath to the clerk. So so those four PCOs, which are 63, 64, 65, and 79, total $150,000. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, we are at 79%, we're over three-quarters, the way my math falls. So how long before it is turned over to the contract attorney to see what we can recoup of Hamblen County citizens' money?
It'll be very soon. We wanted to get through these changes and get this work done, and then.
Okay, how will you handle that?
What do you mean?
Will we have a meeting with the contract attorney, or will we do by Zoom? I know that there's several options on the table. Legal matters are handled by Zoom a lot of times, so how would you handle that?
Initially, it'll be handled by me and Mr. Pettit meeting. I don't know that we necessarily need to involve her, because we already know pretty much what her positions are on some of the issues. And so we'll deal with the architect first.
Okay,
And if we need to, we'll go back to it.
okay, well, at what point can we expect a report on where Hamblen County stands on this and what the proposed results would be?
I would say in the next 60 days, 69 days.
Okay. Do we, by what you're saying, you don't intend to bring her into it, so am I assuming we won't see any more bills from her for a little bit?
Well, we haven't for a while. So I don't anticipate it, but we may.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Do I hear a motion to approve? Do I have a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, second, who's the second? Mr. Huntsman, second. Mike Richardson made the motion.
There's no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. We'll now move into our audit committee. Chairman Hahn, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll call this audit committee to order. Do we have anyone wishing to address the commission at this time? See none, so we'll move down to item 4, new business. Presentation of the Hamblen County Government Audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Ms. Amanda Hale.
Good evening, everybody. In your packet, you'll have a copy of the presentation we're going to go through tonight. The audit was completed and released by the Comptroller's Office on February the 26th this year, and a full copy of the full report can be found on the Comptroller's website, and also a link is on our website as well. I'd like to thank our East Tennessee Audit Manager, Mark Therese, for being here with us tonight, and when we're done, if anybody has any questions, he can address those. So the slide there in front of you now, we're going to go through the fund balance information for each of the major funds. In fiscal year '23, our net revenues were up around $600,000, resulting in our fund balance growth to $13.1 million, which is up from $12.5 million from the previous fiscal year. Our actual revenues ended up being about $500,000 higher than estimated. Some of the increase was a result of an increase in fees and commissions that we collected during the year. And our expenses also ended up being about $230,000 less than what we had anticipated. Some of that is due to several of our offices weren't fully staffed during the year, so salary and benefit expenses were less than what we had thought we would see. When we went through the budget process, we had anticipated using about $500,000 in fund balance, but because of the increased revenue and decreased expense, we ended up growing the fund balance $600,000. So basically, this $1 million turnaround from what we thought we were going to see is a result of our budgeting practices of estimating, conservatively estimating revenues, and then the departments managing their expenses well. This slide shows our unassigned fund balance. So this is the fund balance that's whether it's unrestricted, uncommitted, or unassigned. And these would be funds that you would use for like capital projects or unanticipated expenses. And it grew almost $1 million from the previous fiscal year. This slide is it shows the unassigned fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. And so our expenditures were about $24 million for the year. So our ratio is 45% roughly. As a general rule of thumb, you'd like that to be between 20 to 25. So we're doing very well. So that just tells us that we have adequate working capital to address any unforeseen expenses or revenue that might not be collected that we anticipated. So this slide, we'll move now into the sanitation fund. Our fund balance in the sanitation fund was down almost $700,000 to just over $2.8 million for the year. Our total expenses were $4 million, which included the purchase of a new brush loader. We paid for the land for the landfill expansion out of this year's budget, and about $350,000 on repair costs in the sanitation fund. But with our fund balance being around $3 million, that puts our ratio of fund balance to expenditures to around 73%. So still well above the 20 to 25 that we would like to see. So moving into the highway fund, the fund balance in the highway fund was down to $237,000 this past fiscal year. The majority of the revenue in this fund comes from the gas and motor fuel tax. And last year we collected about $2.4 million in those tax money. And we had anticipated fund balance being around $440,000. And the reason our fund balance ended up being less than what we had anticipated was close to the end of the year, we approved a budget amendment for the paving resurfacing of McBride Road. So that's where that extra $200,000 came in.
Was that McBride or Warrensburg?
I think it was McBride and
It
Spangler.
was? Okay. Okay. My bad.
So with our total expenses being about $4 million and our fund balance being down to $237, the ratio to expenditures that we're looking at now for highway is down to 6%. So that's much lower than the 20 to 25 that we would like to see. So to help with that, hopefully build our fund balance back up, we moved sales tax revenue from the sanitation fund to highway this year. And then we also moved out the paving and equipment costs out of highway into the highway capital projects fund. So by separating the paving and those costs, and then hopefully moving this sales tax revenue, will help our fund balance going forward.
Amanda, why did that drop from 2022 to 23 by $1 million fund balance? it was, the way I read it is 1.395, and in 2023 is 238,000. What brought that down?
I think, without having it in front of me, Wayne, I think it was, we had anticipated more paving and some equipment purchases.
Buying equipment and not paving roads, right?
Oh, and paving. Paving
Oh,
was in
we're gonna
that
pave
too.
some roads.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll go to the next one. And this graph shows our total fund balances for the general debt service fund. And it's remained pretty steady. Last year, we paid down almost $10 million in principal and interest payments, but we collected $9.7 million in revenue coming from taxes and investment income. So this year's audit did result in two findings. One finding falls under the county mayor's office and is related to an ongoing investigation with the EMA office. And the second finding it actually falls under the office of the highway superintendent, but it's related to time and attendance records for the sanitation department.
Miss Amanda, may I ask a question? Why does the EMA fall under the county mayor's office? I don't understand. I apologize.
Well, I think it's just a matter of how those departments roll up, I'll call it. So the elected official that the EMA director rolls up to is the county mayor. So that's why it fell under the county mayor's office. And Mark could correct me if I'm okay.
Am I understanding you correctly, ma'am, that he appoints the EMA director?
He is hired. He's not appointed, whatever, but I assume Bill makes that hire for the county.
Thank you.
This section just relates to any findings that we might have had on grants, but there were none. The report for the prior year. And this next slide is just a summary, basically, of the auditor's results. And you can see there was no material weaknesses in internal controls over our financial reporting. The significant deficiency that is noted was to do with the sanitation department that we talked about. And again, there were no findings with the federal grants, and an unmodified opinion was issued.
Amanda, back on this audit for the EMA or EMS, what happened? Why did the audit come up with this? What happened there?
Well, I just know that there is an ongoing investigation.
Is they still investigating it?
And that anything they find will be presented.
We don't have anything now to give us, okay, so it's ongoing investigation. Okay, thank you.
Miss Amanda, when you get done, will we have the opportunity to ask, and I think they said Mr. Therese questions, ma'am? Thank you.
I've said a few more slides.
Thank you.
And this page goes into more detail about the findings. The first finding is finding 2023-001 and states that the Hamblen County Emergency Management Agency is currently under investigation by the State Comptroller's Division of Investigations. If any findings are found, they will be published in a subsequent report. The second finding is 2023-002 and is considered an internal control deficiency related to the sanitation department's time and attendance records. And I'll just basically read what's out of that. This finding was the result of an investigation prompted by an allegation filed with the Comptroller's Office in June of 2023 regarding sanitation employees getting paid for hours not worked. The investigation concluded that sanitation employees were most likely working less hours than reflected on their time records. However, there was no way to determine the actual hours worked versus the hours reflected on their time records. The investigation also determined that the practice was authorized by the superintendent and started during COVID to protect and retain employees. Audit recommended that employees' timesheets should reflect the actual time worked, and they should only be paid for time worked. You can actually go to the next one too. And again, this is just another slide about the federal grant awards, and there were no findings. The next slide, in regards to the findings related to time and attendance records for the sanitation department, audit reported that no formal management response was submitted. However, an explanation to the finding is included in the following corrective action plan submitted by the highway superintendent. Again, all this is in your packets, and you can read the memo that Mr. Poole submitted to audit. This is a section of it that regarding his corrective action plan, and describes how he would like to change the sanitation workers' employment classification from hourly to salary. And then this last slide, each year we actually have this recommendation from audit, the central accounting, budgeting, and purchasing system. This time we choose to operate under the state's general law and our local financial management system that was adopted many years ago. That's all I have. And as I mentioned, Mr. Treese is here. I don't think Mr. Poole is here, so if there's any further questions, I'll be happy to answer them, or you can address them.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Ms. Hill, appreciate that. Do we have a motion
Chairman,
to,
yes.
it's on the table. Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Doty, thank you very much. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second.
Long.
Mr. Long. Okay, now we're open for questions, if you have any.
Chairman Hall.
I saw Mr. Poole and Mr. Treese both are here. I'm assuming they'll be glad to answer questions. And you have a question, Ms. Green?
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay,
you,
how
sir.
do?
Okay. My first question is for the auditor. I hope I got the correct term, sir.
Mr. Treese.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'd like to know exactly how come you to target in on this? What was reported that caused you to target? Because the way I understand audits, they don't per se pick a point. They just look at some areas. So what caused you to target sanitation?
Sanitation, it was there was an allegation filed with our department. It was fraud reporting form. It was filed with our department. It was investigated by the Division of Investigations, which is part of the comptroller's office. And based on their work, they did not issue a report because it did not appear to be criminal, but they did move it down to our level, and we did present a report finding.
If I get paid for hours I didn't work, I've took that money under false pretenses as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I mean, it was approved for payment. That's our fault. We couldn't prove how much it was or
Okay.
was not work. The time sheet was there because we were, the average work.
What did you recommend they do to correct the situation, being that the way I understand it, they've got sign-in, sign-out time sheets. Do they not have time clocks?
Honestly, I do not know if it's a time clock or just time cards that they sign off on.
Okay.
The time sheet.
Okay.
Like I said, that work was done by the Department of Investigations.
Did you have somebody in particular that was involved in filling out, reviewing, and approving time sheets of sanitation employees?
Up to the superintendent, who's responsible for it. Employee does that.
So I'm assuming by that, the only one that approves it should be the superintendent, in other words,
Ultimately, I mean,
Mr.
ultimately, his
Poole?
office, but I mean, it could be, he could delegate that. He could actually monitor and everything, because I'm sure he's not there today.
Okay. Okay. All right, my next question, who decides, is where they were talking about the memo that they were gonna make them all salary, is that something that a department head can decide to do, or is that something that comes into play with the comptroller's office, out of curiosity?
It doesn't come into play with us. We just look at the policies that the county has, and make sure they're abiding by those policies. Now, that policy, there's a statute that specifically addresses personnel policies, so you have to follow that statute.
Okay. Your EMA, what got you started into that, and what was the allegation?
I do not know. That is still with our Department of Investigation, so I'm not free to give that information.
Okay.
It's their investigation.
And how long do you expect that to be?
I have no idea. It could be within the next month. It could be within the next 90 days. I do not know. They have their own timeline.
Will there be any action taken if it's decided that something's been used? Wrongly is the word I'm searching for, so I hope I've got the correct term, sir.
Well, it will be reported, it could be reported in a finding issued by them. It could be remitted to us, or we could have it in next year's audit report. So it just depends on what they find when they wrap up their investigation. But as far as I know, that investigation's not wrapped up.
But did somebody, by the way I read for the sanitation, somebody made the allegation.
Most likely.
Can you give me any idea how the EMA one came into play? Was it an allegation or something else?
I would assume so. That's normally the trigger point for investigations with an allegation, or if something we run across in the audit, we'll report it to them. Normally it's an allegation filed through our reporting process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Treese. Do we have any other questions?
Chairman Hart,
Yes.
I have a question for Mr. Pooh, if you would allow, please.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Poole?
Mr. Pooh, who is in charge of approving the timesheets? How many people?
Well, I am, and I'll take full responsibility for it.
You were the only one that approved them.
I'm not, they've got, we've got two supervisors that they fill out their time sheet and they submit to supervisors, but I look over them all and I approve them all.
How do you account for people getting paid for hours they didn't work?
Well, we started back during COVID. We needed to separate the two groups of employees because that was the general principle. You keep everybody apart as much as possible. And so we separated them by, they'd be there at work at different times. The garbage would start about 7, the road would start about 7:10 to try to get the garbage out and going before the road guys got there. And then in the evening, we'd let the garbage guys go home a little early because they got through early, and most of the time the road guys came in after, so that worked out good. But it just, we retained our employees. We didn't have so much turnover in employees. So we just kept on going just like we were, you know, in terms of letting the garbage guys go home early.
Now, COVID was,
Commercial
I'm sorry.
commercial drivers are hard to find. It's a commodity at this point. And so if you have the commercial drivers have to ride the garbage because we not have the number of employees that we want to have, keeping a full staff, then you lose commercial drivers. So we wanted to protect the commercial drivers by letting them go home early because we were retaining our guys that rode on the back of the truck with that policy. So we kept it up. And, you know, it saves on gas, diesel fuel. The quicker they get in, the less gas they use, less wear and tear on the truck. So there's some savings to it in terms of real money. But, you know, we're going to have to reroute the garbage trucks and once this new truck gets in, this fully automated truck, because it's going to do a piece of work that's greater than what we can do with the rider on the back. And so it gave us the best picture of what's happening in real time, how much they can do, what they're capable of, because they go out and they do what they're capable of and they come in because they know they can go home early. So, well, I don't mind filling out the timesheets that depicts exactly what they work, but I don't want their pay to change. And one of the main reasons you got timesheets is to submit the timesheet so you can get paid what you're supposed to. And so, if there's nothing out of the ordinary involved, everybody gets 24 paychecks a year and they're equal. And so, we submit 40 hours like we always have, and they get paid like they're supposed to, and the system, there's no problem in the system. I wasn't trying to fool anybody, I just want to make sure they get paid what they're supposed to.
So let me give you an example. I work for you, so if I leave at 1 o'clock to take one of my grandchildren to the doctor, am I paid for 40 hours, or am I paid for actually what I work?
Well, you had to take time off.
Is that reflected in your written tickets?
Annual time and sick time, bereavement time, and all that's been reflected like it should be.
Who decides if they're salary or hourly, out of curiosity?
Well, like I say, everybody gets 24 equal paychecks a year, so you can call it what you want to. We budget it, and that's what we pay them, so you can call it what you want to, hourly or salary, it doesn't matter to me, just so they're paid properly.
Let's move on from this, but that would be an answer this commission would take up, and we may have to do that upon his recommendation in the report that we have currently. He stated what he would like, and if you read your report, then it's before you. But it's something that we'll not decide today. This commission will take that up if we need to.
May I ask one more question, please, sir?
Go ahead, please.
Do you have a time clock out there?
We did, and it tore up, and it's gonna be about $400 to get a new one, and so we just hadn't bought one yet. We need to. We need to get one back up, but we just hadn't. It's just a matter of one of those items that was overlooked, but we've had a time clock for years.
How long has it been broke, out of curiosity?
It's been about a year.
All right, let's move on. It doesn't matter.
Thank you for your
We have any
answers.
other questions? Mr. Doty?
Mr. Poole, just one question I have. In your response to, you're talking about the salary, but you show there'll be no overtime payment. I know these guys, especially during holiday times, they work long hours on certain days to catch up, where we've had to miss. I didn't see any listing of this, but hopefully in the formal, they'll get some comp time on that.
Well, Jeff Taylor says we have to pay overtime, so.
Okay.
We'll have to pay overtime, but we can make them salary according to him, and then we'll have to pay overtime.
Okay, that's great, but I just didn't want them to work for 7, 8 hours extra, picking up a whole nother route and not get paid
Yeah,
for
but
it.
now overtime would be 40 hours, so if they work 34 hours in a week, they got,
Yes,
normally, then they would only be paid for what's over 40.
yes.
Any other questions? Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Poole. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll add to his committee. You can see on the final page of that what's expected of our duties of the audit committee. It's just there for you to know. Thank you, Chairman Hahn. We'll now move into Finance Committee, and once again, you're recognized, Chairman Hahn.
I'll call the Finance Committee to order. Anyone wishing to address the committee may do so at this time. We'll have 3 minutes. See none. Move down to item 3, our recurring business, our expenditure reports, and our monthly checks. I'm sure you've taken notice of those. Move down to number 5A, authorization to apply for the SAMHSA grant for Recovery Court Resolution 24. Ms. Penny Knight, Recovery Court Director.
One of our participants, she was actually in our recovery court, and when we started our mental health court, she transferred over underneath the mental health court, and when she applied for phase 4, if you remember there's 5 phases for the program, she wrote a thank you letter. And the judge thought it'd be a great idea that she come and read it to you all tonight, if you'll entertain her to read this through 3 clips, okay?
Yes.
This is Rebecca Carpenter, and she'll tell you that she's been sober for 15 months, and it's the longest time since she was 6 years old. And so this is Rebecca Carpenter, and she's a Hamblen County resident.
I'm Rebecca Carpenter, and I'm here to express how grateful I am for the 3rd Judicial Recovery Court team for their long hours of hard work and dedication. They have been successful at managing my recovery. To the community for their support in opening the doors of the Ward House. It has been a safe, comforting refuge from my storm and those cold, dark, abusive, violent nights of addiction. 16 months ago, I could not communicate, hopeless with no purpose in society. Today, there's hope for a bright, honest, successful future as a proud member of this community. Because of this program and a gift of discipline, love, faith, protection, and correction, I honestly can say I am proud and worth saving. The debt I owe, the amends I owe, I can only repay by giving back to the community what you have so freely given to me. And to give all the honor and the glory to God, I share with you now Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. Special thanks goes out to Cynthia Beasley and the 4th Judicial Recovery Court team.
Well, so I'm here to ask if you would give us permission to apply for the SAM HSA grant. It is a 5-year grant, up to $400,000 a year for 5 years. That'd be up to $2 million. What we're going to do with those funds would be it would meet the county needs of our court in anything above the state grant. So the county, if we was to win this grant, would not be having to put in any funds like you've so graciously done for the last 2.5 years we've been in existence. And there's no cost to applying for the grant. The grant writer's doing it. She will be paid out of, if we win the grant, for monitoring the grant. So it'll be included in the funds we receive if we win. I will tell you that she won all seven in 2023 for the state of Tennessee that she wrote grants for. And we've got to the end of this month to apply for it. It's due April 1st.
Okay. If you happen to get this grant, what will you use the money for?
It will fund our budget.
For more buildings or more lodging or?
No, so the 501c, the nonprofit, is actually who manages the transitional living. Mm-hmm. The county, beyond the initial dollars to purchase the ward house and the house beside it, the 501c has been raising funds to keep those running. And then the people pay rent. Ms. Rebecca actually is one of the tenants in our women's houses. And the 501c just signed a lease for a rental on the for men's to live. And we could have up to 9 men live where we rented. You're welcome.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. Have a motion. Mr. Doty, do I have a second?
Mr. Long.
Mr. Long, thank you, sir. We have any more questions for Ms. Knight? Let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Good luck with that.
Our next graduation is the 4th Thursday in April at noon. You can make it. Probably at First Baptist Church. They've been
You go out.
This, for April, it looks like we're going to have maybe 2 to 4. October, the fall one seems to be our big one. We just graduated 9 in October, and we're on schedule to maybe graduate 12 to 15 this coming October. But we do want to have 2 a year. So the spring appears, it was lighter last year also.
When
Maybe
they
2 to
when they
4.
graduate, you come right back and replace them with new people?
Well, we're up to 48 people in the court right now, and we're sitting with 10 applications.
What happens when they graduate? They leave a program?
We ask for them to stay in contact with us and come back to the court every other month for 6 months, and we're supposed to try to figure out how to follow them for 2 years for recidivism purposes in reporting, and the state can't tell us. But, I mean, these people live, our graduates live in the community, so generally we're aware if there's a problem. Because it's a tight-knit group. They stay in contact with each other and support each other. So right now there's no recidivism.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move down to item 5B, authorization to apply for the BRAG, the TDEC Brownfield Redevelopment Area Grant. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's before you is a resolution that would authorize the county mayor's office to apply for a BRAG grant. And what this is for is you saw in your materials, this grant would specifically pay for the remediation at a property on Violet Street over behind Rusty Wallace Kia. It's a building that was used in manufacturing for many years, owned by the Plumley family. TDEC has basically declared it unusable because of the environmental condition of the building. So this $500,000 grant would install the remediation program that TDEC has recommended, and it's a non-matching grant, and we're just requesting that. And this is what's going to happen once the building is fixed. The Plumley family is going to give it to the Recovery Court nonprofit, and the Recovery Court nonprofit can lease the building out to generate revenue to help operate the houses and the recovery houses. And they do have a prospective tenant, so once the property is cleaned up, then it will be given formally to the Recovery Court support nonprofit and then leased out to help them operate their program.
Do I have a motion? Mr. Joe has a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Doty, is there a second? Do we have any questions or comments for the mayor? Pretty straightforward. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Move down to item 5C, additional financing for landfill expansion. C1, Resolution 24, a resolution authorizing the insurance or issuance of general principal amount not to exceed $6,500,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet is a narrative that I prepared that gives you a little background on the need for additional financing for the landfill expansion. The initial estimates for the expansion of the landfill was about $9 million, and at that time the city and county moved forward with the financing. We each issued about $4.5 million in bonds to pay for the expansion. Now, from that time to now, the landfill has purchased about 87 acres in a Class 3 landfill adjacent to our current landfill that GFL owned, and that prompted a redesign of the expansion, which increased its capacity by 33% and extended its life from 14 years to 24 years. And so when the bids went out, well, they came back in February. The low bid was at $15 million, so we were $6 million short in financing. And there were 4 bidders. The second lowest bid, well, the other 3 were right around the $22 million level. So the $15 million was the low bid. I talked to city administration, talked to our financial advisor and solid waste board chairman, and what our recommendation is that Hamblen County finance the additional money to pay for the expansion. The issuer, what our financial advisor says is one issuer instead of 2 will lead to lower interest rates by 1 to 3 basis points, and also save us in our cost of issuance as well, because instead of 2 bond issues, you have 1. Also, in conversations with the city of Morristown is in the next year, in 2024, they have needs for their sewer system that they will be issuing debt for, as well as a fire truck. So the $6.5 million would exceed their $10 million threshold for bank qualified status. And what bank qualified status does is it gives you a better interest rates that banks can bid on buying these bonds and get a benefit out of it. And generally, that's who the buyers are for these types of bonds. So that's why instead of splitting the bonds as we did last time, Hamblen County would issue the bonds and get lower interest rates, and without hurting our debts, our credit rating, and without causing us any financial strain at all. Also, the plan would be, and working with a financial advisor, we would issue the $6.5 million for 20 years this year. And then in 2028, the city and county would refinance the $4.5 million that they financed in 22-23 and extend those bonds out longer because the life of the asset, the life of the landfill, has been extended by this expansion, and that would lower the payments for the bonds and thus keep the solid waste system from having to raise tipping fees, which it already has to service the debt, because the solid waste system will reimburse the county for the payments that we will be making, both interest and principal, on this debt. Mr. Chairman, our request, or my request, is that one is we approve these 2 resolutions. The first one I would ask would be 5C2, which is the initial resolution. The initial resolution sets a 20-day protest period. There's a public notice in the resolution. If you notice, there's a public notice that the county clerk has to publish, and it starts time on a 20-day protest period. So if there was a group that protested the issuance of these bonds, they could get the necessary signatures on a petition to stop it. And then if that 20-day period expires, then we would, there'd be the resolution to authorize us to issue the bonds. So that's the initial resolution, starts the clock on the protest period. The second resolution authorizes the issuance of the bonds. Right now, the timing of the bond issue would be summer, because we have the $9 million to spend on the first phases of the construction, and we wouldn't want to issue the bonds until we need the money, and that'll be the summertime. But, Mr. Chairman, that's my request.
Okay, we're looking at 5C1. Do I have a motion?
I have a question, Bob.
I have a motion. Mr. Richardson, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Doty. Mr. Neesmith,
Question, Mayor. The estimation was $9 million for the expansion,
Yes.
and are you telling me that they bought more land
Yes.
and they come back in, and the new price is $15.3 million?
Correct. Yes.
And you're wanting to give a bond, that the money, the city not get a bond, we take care of the bond. And the
Correct.
city pay us back.
The landfill will pay us back.
Landfill.
Yes.
Can we spare $6.5 million for 20 years?
We can with the landfill paying us. The landfill will service the debt. And so, I mean, ultimately, I guess we're responsible for the debt.
Yeah.
Okay, but we will have an agreement with the landfill that they'll pay us for the debt. And Wayne, the city and the county are the top two customers of the landfill. So, I mean, it's important that we make sure that it's got the capacity to serve our people for a long time.
We take any outside counties or anything in that landfill now? Yeah, I think
No,
so.
not residential garbage. There may be some outside waste that private haulers are bringing in, but not like Cott County residential waste or Greene County, no.
Are they burning wood now, or are they chipping it up?
We're chipping it up using the shredder that this body financed a few months ago.
That makes like a mulch,
Correct. Yes,
like Wayne Lewis's crusher cars make.
exactly.
And then, you know, I never could figure it out. A car is full of rubber, it's full of plastic. Wayne Lewis put it through the crusher. He can put tires in there. The anticurrent picks out all the brass, the copper, the zinc, the aluminum, and then the metal goes somewhere else. But this stuff is called fluff. It's what's left over. It's rubber, it's plastic, that type of stuff. And Wayne was selling, at one time Wayne was selling, he had to pay to get rid of that at the landfill, which is used to cover. When they get ready to close it, that's what they use it for.
Do you have any other questions on this first motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion does pass. Move down to item 5C2. Do I have a motion? Mr. Richardson, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Doty, thank you very much. Do I have any questions on this? Okay, let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 5D, a resolution authorizing the Hamblen County Sheriff's Office to apply for a Tennessee Highway Safety Office-sponsored impaired driving enforcement grant. I do not see Mr. Mullins. Captain Cribley?
No, that's it.
Very good.
Basically, this is a grant that we've applied for previously, but it's just different, THSO with both of them. This was, the only difference is it's an impaired driving enforcement grant, and it just changes the items that we can get from this grant. So initially, what we're going for is this grant to pay for in-car video, computers, mounts for vehicles, fatal vision products, DUI checkpoint supplies, generators for lighting, basically anything to do with traffic. And initially, when we applied for that, should be on there, but I think it was 25 to 40,000. And the reason why they placed that number on that initially is just because it's a broad range of the items that we can get. So if we go back and forth with the other, we want to place it at that 25 to 40 range just to have a safe number.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Doty, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cutshaw, thank you very much. Any questions for Captain Cribley? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5E, number 1, Fund 122, Drug Control Fund, VCIF grant, $568.97. Ms. Hale.
This budget amendment will move $568 recognize the expense and the revenue for grant funds that we receive. This VCIF grant is a law enforcement grant that we applied for. And again, this just puts the money back in the expense account that we've used to pay for the items and then recognizes the revenue.
Do I have a motion?
So,
Mr. Richardson, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Doty, thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Hale? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion does pass. Item, excuse me, 5E2, Fund 128, Drug Use Abatement Fund, $150,000.
So during this year's budget process, the commission voted to move $150,000 out of the drug abatement fund to the general fund. $100,000 would be used towards the jail to work program and the other $50,000 towards the recovery court program. And this is just to budget that. It passed through commission, but this budgets it into the fund.
Okay, do I have a motion for approval?
motion to approve.
Mr. Cutchild, do I have a second? Mr. Long, thank you very much. Do we have any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Item 5E3, Fund 101, Jail ELC Grant, $62,225.40.
The ELC grant was a program for the Sheriff's Department, particularly the jail, and this budget amendment recognizes that revenue that we have received as reimbursement and then the offsetting expenses.
Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Doty, do I have a second? We have a second, Mr. Richardson. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item last, 5E4, Fund 101, Sheriff's Department, VCIF Grant, $69,133.63.
So still VCIF, this time it's in the general fund versus the drug fund, and recognizes the expenses and the associated revenue that we've gotten in from those grant proceeds.
Have a motion to approve? Motion, Mr. Richardson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cutshaw, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Hale? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Hale. Motion passes. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Hahn. And we will now go into the Personnel Committee. Chairman Doty, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Call the Personnel Committee meeting to order. Do we have any visitors wishing to address this committee? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Old business, 3A, we have none. Item 4A in renew business, we have approval of education pay submissions, which we have two folks that have gotten their associate's degree. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ahern. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Joe Huntsman. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Then we have item 4B, it's approval of longevity pay submissions. We have 5 folks there that have gotten the 3 years with us, which is an achievement in today's workforce. Do I have a motion to approve these?
Make a motion.
Second. Walker. Do I have a second? Mr. Horner. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Doty. Next committee, we will go into the Public Services Committee. Chairman Richardson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll call this committee to order, Public Services Committee to order. Any visitors wishing to address the committee have now 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, we'll go on. No old business, new business. 4A, resolution to amend the zoning map of Hamblen County, Tennessee by rezoning District 04, tax map 013, parcel 033.00, 8250 Grove Street, Whitesburg, Tennessee, 37891, from R1 to A1.
Yes, sir, and good evening to all the commissioners. This application and request comes from property owner Mr. Travis Trent. He is requesting that his property at 8250 Grove Street be downzoned from its current designation of R1, which is single-family residential, to A1, which is agricultural. His request does stem from his wish to dedicate more than 500 square feet of his property to a home occupation, and per the Hamblen County zoning regulations, if you go over 500 square feet in a home occupation, the only zone in which you can do this is the A1 zone. Staff does not have any objection to this rezoning at this time, as most of the property to the south of Mr. Trent's property is indeed zoned A1. And I believe that the Hamblen County Planning Commission all voted to forward this request on to you with a favorable recommendation. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? If not, do we have a motion? Make a motion. Have a motion by Mr. Long, second.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Mr. Cutchaw. Any discussion? Okay, if not, we'll call the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign, the motion carries. Thank you. Item 4B, surplus items from the General Sessions Court. Teresa West.
That is a couple of cash registers that are about 20 years old that we're just trying to clean up our house.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Teresa? If none, we have a motion.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Ahern.
Second.
Second by Ms. Walker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign, the motion carries. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chairman Richardson. We'll now move into our Calendar Rules Committee. Chairman Doty, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call the Calendar and Rules Committee meeting to order. Do we have any visitors wishing to address this committee? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Item 3, old business, we have none. Item 4, under new business, we have the review of the regular calendar items. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Ahern, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Horner?
Yes.
Second, Mr. Horner. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 4B is review of the consent calendar items. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Horner, do I have a second? Mr. Joe Huntsman seconds. Any discussion on these items? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Doty. That actually concludes our business for this evening. Are all minds clear? Yes, sir, Mr. Long.
Question for the
Mayor?
mayor. Is there a department in the county on the fuel man bids? Yeah. So they should be buying diesel, gas, and everything off the fuel man bid, right? Can or?
Well, I'm not sure if they're required to, in the county government structure.
Is that something that we can, I mean, if fuel man has a state bid, and we're on the county, can we not say that everybody needs to use that because it is a discount?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We are adjourned.